Hey Twitch, Jacob Hemlock here. Hope you guys are doing well. Anyway, for this discussion, because I feel like discussing more lore analysis and stuff, I thought we'd do one of the series that inspires me the most, which is Warhammer 40k. Which I know what you're thinking. You're going to talk about Warhammer 40k in front of a McDonald's. It's like, yep, we're being that cursed today. I'm bored and fat. Which honestly, it's barely as worse as the fucking library. I just stopped caring when I've done enough streams outside talking to Viper Ning about cringe shit. Anyway, so Warhammer, as we know, is a true dystopia of horror fiction. It's basically a horror fantasy world, a horror sci-fi fantasy world of eldritch futuristic proportions. It's like pretty fucking epic but sad to how humans have to win, because like we should just vibe with the war patterns of like lowest grade to highest grade. Actually, we're gonna vibe with the whole society of Warhammer in my head and how I know it's structured, to where it's like such a sad vibe of like how fucked up society is. Now, first of all, I gotta vibe with how fucked society is. Now, the main situation on Terra is that, and with all of humanity, is there's an overpopulation problem, and they ran out of food. Literally, it's like fucking real food is like really scarce because of, I think it's mainly warfare and the fact there's just too many fucking people. So they have to do a tragic thing, which is eat corpse starch, which is just fucking corpse meat. I'm not gonna lie, it's basically just spam liquid corpse meat. Anyway, going from there onward. We now go to how the structure of society works itself, instead of just vibing with that dumb thing we do. In Warhammer, society is like a horrible dystopia worse than fucking capitalism, because like we don't get paid, first of all. It's like slavery to save the world, because we can't afford resources like fucking like giving you special shit. We're all on the bare minimum because it's like such a fucking distraught war economy. It's like if humanity's hanging on by such a thread, I have to organize you into such patterns. You're always on rations. You're lucky to get wine. Everything fucking sucks. Our epic technology is epic, but it's breaking down. And we got so dumb we couldn't figure out how to fucking fix it. Like literally, some of the shit's broken. You know, it's supposed to be really fucking epic. To be fair, some of it happens because of the dark age of technology, where there's epic things such as auto-aim cyborgs who get banned. The auto-aim cyborg got banned. He was such an epic auto-aim cyborg, he could basically snipe you from like 30 miles in 2 seconds if he was bored. He was supposed to be that amazing. All those cyborgs were. They were supposed to be that epic of killing machines, and they all got banned because we did a dark age of technology war that destroyed humanity so hard that like everything kind of got fucked up from there. Even more than it already was. It basically invents the reality we live in to an extent to me. Because everything's broken or banned, except for like, I mean, some of it's epic. We still got exterminatus to destroy planets, but like, otherwise, like, all the cool shit you expect Warhammer 40k, which starts at year 40k AD to have, is just like banned. Because it was too amazing at killing each other. But we still got a lot of cool shit, which for it to get there to the cool shit, we must now vibe with the path of warfare. We will begin with, first of all, society evolves around feeding and maintaining the war force, which is just a bunch of slavery and farming and making things like guns and ammo and food. Then we move up to doing the real war force for like basic humans. Basic humans freaking just die all day. It's like, not I mean, they die. They are the main war force, but they die all day to the point it's sadly annoying they even exist, because everyone knows that like the average space marine would like go way harder. And going up from there, we go on to the next step of the process, which is, as I said, the Space Marine. The Space Marine is a freaking epic project of the God Emperor, who is an epic, tragic figure of Warhammer with love and hate for everyone, because he is like a being we will briefly touch on that I call a godly figure of cursed altruism, or basically all of Warhammer is a path of sadness to lead to epic wins. It's often filled with cursed shit that would be vibing with futuristic Satanism at best. Often it is futuristic, tragic, self-abusive fucking curse shit that lead to epic shit like we will now describe with the Space Marine. The Space Marine, through a process of being amplified through a thing they call a gene seed, which is, alright, I'm getting a flow in. This is off the top of my head, so I might be wrong. Wes Hammer might pwn me on this. Anyway, it's supposed to be a gene seed that has something like a genophage. They call it a genophage because it genetically, like, phases you through a bunch of shit near instantly. It's like a fucking, it's supposed to be a really painful, basically forced evolution process, where it's like a bunch of chemicals, and apparently the Emperor's own DNA with my code to figure out how they even auto-code it works to, like, you basically get all the elements and minerals and shit, plus a DNA map in your mind, to where your body, if it doesn't reject it, will automatically become a Primarch. Noting there is a problem, where basically it is a soldier getting bored to try to be a Felonid, or some dumb shit, which a Felonid is a cat girl or a cat man. Or it is interesting and funny to admit that every weird build that you see in like what you think would be a fan fiction of Warhammer is because the rejection still worked to an extent. They just did not become the form they needed. Like in this case was a Felonid, which is a cat woman or cat man, which they still use, but they hate them. Literally, it's like there's like some racism there that doesn't really get touched on because at least in all the lore videos I've seen, most of the time we don't talk about them. We don't really acknowledge they're officially in any army. They're just kind of around, being annoying. Even though Felonids are supposed to be real. It's just like, what are they doing in the story? We never acknowledge it. We have never at least acknowledged it on YouTube. So, YouTubers, if you're mad at me about how wrong I am, can you please correct me for one? And two, if I'm even remotely right about the Felonids, please can we get a lore update if on any Felonids or any of the weird species from the failed but somewhat successful transformations from the gene seed matters, like anything matters. Like I'll even take like a one-off adventure of a cat girl just killing like gene stealer cults. Like I'll even take that bare minimum. Anyway, like we don't know shit about them because 9 times out of 10 they just don't acknowledge them anymore because they didn't do anything important. At least from my knowledge, but I don't read the books enough to know if that's true. I could be wrong. I could be wrong based on I don't read much of the books. I mainly vibe with YouTube videos, so Wes Hammer can probably pull me on this any minute if he's bored. Anyway, moving on, through that, past the failed genophage, that sometimes fails so hard also that they die. But moving on, if they succeed, they become such an epic steroid freak that they are like physical gods that are, to popular culture, equivalent to Brick from Borderlands 2, but he has a bunch of epic extra organs that just make him like an epic, like, auto-immune system build, as well as just being hard to kill because he has things like extra hearts and shit. Yeah, I think they have like 3 hearts. So to be able to keep pumping more blood through their body because you have to kill all 3 hearts to stop that. They're like supposed to be really epic Brick characters. Like really epic so hard that they're like, the lore is often like, if I send 1 Space Marine, I can pwn at least 10,000 orcs, 1,000 Eldar, and like 200 Tyranid. Or something like that. They're supposed to be really epic, to where it's like 1 to like hundreds every time, at least, on how epic a Space Marine's supposed to be. And then we move on to the next step of the process, to where everyone's epic, which is Adeptus Custodes, which is like the 3rd highest rank of power in the Imperium. These are like the Emperor's personal guards, who unfortunately in lore, besides being known as god-tier characters that aren't like the Emperor's own sons or some shit, they are just supposed to be epic, but unfortunately the lore says that when the Emperor died, they all agreed to guard the palace instead of do anything based. So unfortunately, we just look at them as gods that sit in the corner all day, like the Felonids, just hoping one day they'll emerge and prove the lore is real and kill someone in like 2 minutes. Anyway, they are just supposed to be really epic. I'm not even gonna pretend I think they have any extra upgrades beyond just being physically superior to Space Marines in every fucking way. So just throw a stat at them and upgrade by like 200% or something, move on. Just like, they're just supposed to be really epic. Be like, is there a number? I think they're supposed to be equal to 10 Space Marines bare minimum, or like 10 Space Marines constructed into one. So like 10 bricks from Borderlands 2, and Borderlands 1 constructed into one person. 10 bricks, alright, 10 bricks, I got that. And then we get the Primarchs, who are epic bullshit every time. First of all, on a build level, they often have a unique ability, which, we'll go with the few I have memorized. One is Alfarius. Alfarius is honestly the most normal one. He has like the most epic feats to an extent on physicality, which basically should be considered somewhat a baseline for all Primarchs, except for Fulgrim, who's like a little bitch for some reason in stats. Until he becomes like a fucking He gets upgraded by becoming a Daemon Prince of Slaanesh, which means he becomes epic as a real Primarch. Then he gets epic stats and beats even like fucking Rogel Dorn and shit. He's like supposed to be epic at that point to everyone. Anyway, he is supposed to be like low-key the best physical one I've heard besides Vulcan, which apparently he dicks him down a lot harder than I'm like supposed to agree with. Like apparently only Angron's equal to him, so I'm just like sitting there like, it's like kind of funny. Like I'm like, why was Alferis supposed to be this base? He's like such a funny build because his other than epic physical stats, his one ability is that he can just be really bland. So bland that even though he's like a fucking 12-foot tall Primarch that's like 6 feet wide of pure muscle, in like this blue and green scaled sea armor or some shit, which is like sea scale armor to me, like a fish scales like style armor. Still he can just seem to be so bland, no one notices him, and we're just supposed to think it's real. Even though I just keep imagining, like, does he vanish? Because I'm always gonna notice that giant brick in the corner. Anyway, next up we have fucking what's his name? Fucking he's like the fucking, there's like fucking some goth dude. Is he like the leader of Dark Angels? I think it might be leader of the Dark Angels. I might be wrong. Anyway, there's one dude that straight up turns invisible. If you watch If the Emperor Has a Text-to-Speech Device, he's like the bro that hangs out with Vulcan, the green armored dude. He's supposed to have the invisibility power. And then I'm hearing Vulcan in my head say he makes guns out of thin air, so that's neat. He's supposed to be that epic a blacksmith, where he just makes guns on the go. Kind of like an orc, where he just makes things with his imagination and punches you with it, or kills you with it, shoots you with it. And who else do I have? I'm hearing someone in my mind says Corvus Corax has mind rape, where I think he means he can just control your mind. Yeah, I'm hearing it. He does like, I know it's a genjutsu. It's the Itachi genjutsu, where he tortures you by stabbing you in your imagination. That's it. He does the Itachi genjutsu on you. Corvus Corax does, I think. It's just off the top of my head. Wes Hammer can pull me probably if I'm wrong. Anyway, so they're like, they have like epic powers. They're like, oh, and the best one is Magnus when it comes to special powers, because he's just straight up a real psyker. Which, oh, I should have mentioned psychers. Psychers are the magical people. They don't often have high rank. They're barely above like regular humans. They're just like, they're honestly pretty base if they're good. They fluctuate so much, except as glass cannons. They're still fragile, but otherwise they're like really bullshit. Their power level fluctuates like all day, based on how in tune they are to the warp. If they can handle it, if they can figure out how to kill a man with a lightning bolt. They can handle the mental strain, like in fucking Call of Cthulhu. They're like epic bullshit, where it's just like, sometimes they can at least wound a Primarch, every one of them, if they autism hard enough. Yeah. Anyway. Now, Magnus is supposed to be such a god tier psyker. He is like supposed to be basically real Dungeons and Dragons wizard tier. He's not supposed to be like a dumb person who's like a regular psyker who has to do like a bullshit ritual every time. He's supposed to just like be godly as a mage. And the only person who's as good as him at magic is the almighty Big E, the god emperor himself, who is just supposed to be such an epic being. He is just an epic tragic figure of science and magic sometimes, and also being a big physically strong man like a Adeptus Custodes or Primarch when he's alive. Because in present lore, he is a corpse on a chair that fuels the Empire with being a giant light, so that people can guide themselves through space back to Terra. Which I know what you're thinking, that kind of sucks. He's just a giant glowing light bulb I love now. Yes. But also he causes warp storms, which are basically like something like a physical reality. It's like fucking, a warp storm is like a lot of things. Sometimes it could be like a black hole. Sometimes it could be like waves forming in space, like basically traumatizing a society with like space waves and shit, or like space water basically to an extent, but like with invisible force. And also sometimes it's just like something we call the Gellerfield's turn off, and reality just gets warped so hard we live in the imagination of mankind, to where there are pocket universes of nonsense happening, where it's often things like hell, torture, debaucherous nightmares of love and hate, where some of it's great as a story, but then if you think it's like remotely physical, it gets really annoying and upsetting. And also, There's a lot of mean shit happens in a warp storm. A lot of mean shit. Anyway, let me think. Alright, so with that said, we now focus on the person that I like the most, because he's like basically the center of the world, because he at least sets all the pieces up. Everyone else is very insignificant compared to him, except for the Primarchs. And I haven't explored their stories enough to know really much of their themes, besides from what If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device briefly touches on. The only person I really know well as a Primarch is Alfarius, and the Dark Angel leader, even though he barely shows up because I at least know their guild. And he was around there, at least teaching, at least he's like, it's his structure. Which I'm bored. Let's talk about the Primarchs that we know before we talk about the Emperor, because they're shorter and just set up smaller people for the big man himself. Alright. Now, Alfarius and the Dark Lion L. Richardson or whatever, Lion L is at least his first name for Dark Angels, are both very secretive people. Now, they are different, though, in different ways. We'll vibe with the funny one first, Alfarius. Alfarius is supposed to be a saboteur of love and hate, where in my head, sometimes he ends up just wanting to be Emperor Jr. besides Horus, but with subterfuge, instead of just getting an army one day and turning on the Emperor with a big fit of attacking him with everything he's got. Alfarius actually does subterfuge and dicks people down all day with spy tactics and shit. Like my favorite example in the first Alfarius book, which I don't know if there's any been more Alfarius books, I've only read the first one, where he gets introduced. He does a funny tactic where like he decides to introduce himself to the Imperium because they don't believe he's real. They just don't think he's real. And he's like, they're in denial he's real because honestly they've been all spread across space and time. And they think he's a made-up Primarch because there's only supposed to be 16 Primarchs. But the problem is that he is like supposed to be a twin set. There's like another one called Omegron. They're supposed to be like Primarch tier, who like the Emperor like totally acknowledged one time. Now, is that true? I have not read a book confirming that because as we know the Emperor's dead. Alfarius could honestly be a very funny OP character who is just a dick, who is just showing up as maybe like, and I don't know, we could cope and say he's like an epic Adeptus Custodes, a Primarch tier. If we decide to vibe with what his build says about him and nothing else, and just say he's a liar. Who is just like showing up as a Primarch tier Adeptus Custodes, dicking down Primarchs for fun, to try and establish that he's as cool as them or better. Sometimes doing something actually epic for the Emperor, because he does eventually get a legion according to his lore. He does get his own legion and soldiers, because the Emperor doesn't acknowledge him that much, that part of the story is real. And he's even had interactions with other people in the story, which my favorite one is with Primarch of the Space Wolves, whose name I forget. Primarch of the Space Wolves and him have a talk, where basically they're trying to figure out their real roles. Primarch of the Space Wolves thinks he's supposed to exterminate people, including the other Primarchs if they act wrong. Alfarius just says he's supposed to be a hidden sword that basically is supposed to police people to an extent to himself. He's supposed to act, he still says he's supposed to act as an instinctive hand of the Emperor when he's not around. Which means he's totally trying to emulate the God Emperor's will. And not just doing something dumb, like just trying to force his will on them. Which, we don't really know what his politics are, so I don't know what he's doing besides trying to just have fun dicking down his own people. And trying to be important. And just trying to at least get influence to be a Primarch or something. Alright. And, with that said, we now move on to Lionel Johnson, who is actually really intriguing and fucking annoying to an extent. Now, I must criticize his book that came out in like 2024 or 2025. It was like his first like real Primarch book in like years. Apparently had one before, if my lore about's right. Anyway, here's what's up. Freaking, he's a very secretive figure about Alfarius, but way more annoying. He's like Illuminati tier in terms of subterfuge while being obvious, because he does this pattern with people's armor, which is supposed to be a bunch of symbols on their armor, but it's supposed to make them recognize things about like their rank to each other. Literally, they're supposed to like figure out people's symbols, figure out they're on a team and stuff. And they do like real sticky shit where basically there's like interlaced teams of people based on ranks and stuff, which I hope is real. They seem really official about it the whole time with the main character, but could it be real? I don't know, because we have Alfarius in the corner saying we could be lying. And when it comes to how epic and Illuminati that shit is, there could be like a big old, were we lying in the Dark Angels too? Not confirmed to me. But could it be possible to do with how many teams are interlaced with each other? Sometimes you even get shit like, in one group I'm high rank, in another group I'm low rank, which generally happens in the book at one point, where he's like different ranks of high and low in like 2 different situations, at least if I recall correctly. It's because of the annoying structure of like, if at bare minimum, unless they're working near perfectly, they will sometimes, doing autism probably, if we vibe with like simulating things in my head, and trying to switch their rank in their team to dick down someone that's arguing with them about something. And like, for example, it's like, in Team A, you're like a leader, and the dude you're arguing with is your subordinate, but then he switches teams on you, like invited to like becoming Vox Miraculous, as miraculously I'm higher ranked than you in this team. And you get, then just like stuff like dumb shit like that will happen, where chaos can happen because they're like fucking trying to claim different ranks based on the team they're on. Now, that's just me imagining things will fall apart like that. I actually haven't seen that yet, because I haven't read enough books, but I imagine if they got bored, they could probably do that. But the Imperium is supposed to low-key be so competent that it's not a thing that's supposed to regularly happen. But it could happen because of people like Alfarius, even though it will be happening with discretion and stoicism and being based, instead of just being a funny meme. Which, fun fact, I inspired a funny meme about Alfarius once, believe it or not. So Alfarius is a funny meme to me because I basically realized he is imposter syndrome, but in a cult, which really supposed to at least be his own legion to me, if not the entire freaking Imperium, where he just shows up as an imposter trying to be base because he has his epic physical stats, and otherwise just trying to give orders to people and shit based on how he's smart. And even though sometimes he's a spy and dicks them down with superior tactics for fun, then he tries to like be a Primarch and shit and look based. And sometimes just like doing an investigation, which is honestly the only thing he's really doing in the story. He's like doing an investigation, like solve some shit that happened. I think it was a murder. He's like being a cop for a little bit to an extent. I don't remember his goal, but he's being a cop, right? And he's like just talking about how based he is. And it's just like, all right, you're a bit of a cop, bit of like a special agent Alfarius over there. And we got distracted. Dark Angel stuff. We go back to Lionel Johnson. Lionel Johnson's like a pretty stoic dude. He actually vibes more with the fact that while he's like a secretive Illuminati, they are united enough to where they're an epic army, unlike Alfarius for one. And for two, he's like a dick to the whole Imperium when we think about how Dark Age technology is supposed to be banned. But to defeat his enemy, which is a mind-controlling alien to him, where he's having to kill his own soldiers and shit, I think. Or does he at least kill civilians that are being mind-controlled? Which begins a pattern of cursed altruism, at least for this rant, but not with the whole world of Warhammer. It's like very regular to them, actually. To be like doing cursed things to be a good person. In this case, he is having to kill things that are considered innocent in order to win a war against a mind-controlling alien that controls too much shit, and they're barely keeping their heads on straight and avoiding killing each other and stuff. Now, it's basically a pretty fucked up battle to an extent, because there's a lot of civilian casualties and their own casualties, which turn out they turned on each other and like fucked each other up to an extent. I'm not sure how major, but I think it at least happened once they fought each other when they thought someone was a Chaos Marine. Anyway, let me think. I'm thinking. Now, oh yeah, right, the most important thing besides that is that anyway, he is a dick because he has access to all the Dark Age of technology, which apparently was given to him by God Emperor himself to be the one that safeguards it, and he uses it on the mind-controlling aliens and controlled civilians, with the worst option to me ever, the auto-aim cyborgs of despair, which auto-aim kill your ass so easily. They're like epic god-tier bullshit. And with that, we move on to the God Emperor himself, who, we basically revealed enough to where, like, you basically know all these plans are actually the Emperor's shit, if anyone's listening to him. Well, they just the Primarchs are first. We'll describe the Primarch's birth just in a bunch of bullshit to describe how epic he's supposed to be. Now, the Primarchs are actually bullshit because, if I remember right from some more videos I've seen, he actually basically fucking, he's a raw bro, raw epic godly fellow, and fucking, like, basically fights chaos creatures, at least, if not the chaos gods themselves, or at least demon princes, steals their DNA, and then also mixes it with his epic DNA, does a bunch of science and shit in, some fucking artificial pregnancies in cows, I think, because I think the test tube was a cow they used to create the Primarchs, or something. I'm not sure about it, but anyway, after that, they created the Primarchs, which are epic bullshit, and then a meme happens. The Chaos Gods steal his sons, the Primarchs, and spreads them across the universe. And a plan that is bullshittingly, epically convenient to an extent, because they all end up mostly on worlds that have at least regular humanoids. Some of them even already pre-existed in his empire. He just has to go get them, and then they all have epic adventures, because apparently they're all, like, grown enough to where they're, like, such godly teenagers even. They just, like the White Scars do, just basically a warpath for being a dick. That becomes his own miniature emperor on a planet. Which, we've done enough reflecting on other people. Just say he was, like, typically like a Conan the Barbarian man that wrecks shit all day by going very fast on a machine he made out of like a motorcycle. He had a motorcycle when he killed things like Conan the Barbarian in like a mostly plains medieval world. Like Conan the Barbarian, but on a motorcycle. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, God Emperor after that is basically going on tragic adventures. Every one of them is pretty tragic. We'll instead focus on the relationship between Angron, because basically he does a fucked up thing, prioritize himself over Angron's life, which Angron always hates him for, and is honestly the only person that's really justified being a Chaos Marine, because Emperor forced him into his empire instead of letting him roll with his life that he's dealt with like for like, I don't know, so many years to himself at least. And the Emperor claims it's only been 5 years since he lost him or some shit. It's like stupid. He claims like a short time. Angron's like, it's been 40 years of war. I lost women I loved. I was a gladiator for 20 years in a war cage where I tore everyone apart all day, trying to rule my dystopia of chaos and sadness, and being forced to fight in a gladiator coliseum a lot because they kept winning enough to make me go fight in a coliseum again. And I dicked them down by killing everything every time. And in the midst of an epic dick down session, that might have been the last stand between him and his few loyal men, a hot chick he loved, and also another one that died. And the God Emperor just teleports Knights him and steals him and leaves his friends to die. He doesn't even save his friends. That's like the biggest thing he's sad about. The God Emperor doesn't save his friends. He doesn't care about them. Honestly, part of it is that he doesn't like their genetic material. Some of it just thinks everyone's a dick. He just doesn't like their planet so hard. He doesn't want to bring everyone on the ship. He thinks they're all cursed. Because they all have Angron's pain nails, right? Angron's pain nails is supposed to be pretty bullshit, because maybe they mind control people into killing shit. While they enhance their stats to where they're like servitor tier in terms of like fucking becoming godly servitors, which servitors are like the saddest rank I should mention. Servitors are like human slaves turned into cyborgs that are mind controlled by a device. They do construction work mainly. They are supposed to be such epic people of physicality that you can lift 10,000 pounds or some shit and smash you with it. Really epically. Anyway. So Angron's pissed about that. But the Emperor decides to choose himself over Angron's wishes. He tries to help Angron. Angron kind of doesn't want to deal with getting rid of the pain nails because he knows it's like a buff to him. He's like, it's literally like, this is like some lore mainly I've seen. So again, Wes Hammer can dick me down on this if he's bored to read an Angron book and prove me wrong. But from lore I've seen on YouTube, basically, Angron's supposed to like actually like the pain nails because it's a power buff, as you can imagine, because he's supposed to be known as like physically at least the most powerful fucking one, to where he's like supposed to low-key dick down everyone to lore. Like that's a Primarch. Like he's like supposed to be the strongest Primarch. Some of it's like those pain nails, like a lot to him. Emperor actually wants to nerf him because he's like, it's actually not supposed to be that based. Apparently, he's supposed to be like Gilliman, where he's supposed to be just like an epic bureaucrat. Because like there's like roles everyone's supposed to have, both in the war and off the war. And Gilliman and him were actually not supposed to have any like epic roles in war. Even they're supposed to be at best like lieutenants or generals, who are like supposed to be base, but like they're supposed to be intelligent and psychic, really, if I remember right. Supposed to psychically give out orders. As like a psychic relay system, giving out orders on a psychic level so they can like figure out how to do shit on a dime. And they're both dicks. It's like apparently that they both have ulterior motives to an extent, because of course God Emperor syndrome happens, where everyone wants to try to be God Emperor in secret or officially. Because they all just like, Gilman does his own society, which I kind of like it, because if you vibe with it enough, it ends up being liberalism. Angron is like republicanism with degeneracy. He wants to just be a rape slaver. He wants to rape people and be a slaver. There's like, so it's like typical, he's like a real Chaos Marine. And Mogodorn is just a libtard. That's how they rebel, pretty much, in politics. In terms of how he actually rebels, Gilman mainly rebels by just having his own legion be really different from them, and works when he feels like it, and basically is just like a big ol', I work with anyone that they like remotely are being cool to my goals. He'll like look away while mainly focusing on his own Imperium, while he's just like, I'll help your brain. That's like a goal I can help with, because it kind of aligns with myself and what I want to do next week. And stuff like that. Angron's just basically a dystopian emperor of like, he just shows up to fuck shit up as a Chaos Marine. He really cares about society, but he does have a rape gang. There's just a gang of rape, slaver, murderers. Or his Chaos Marines. The Blood Angels or something, I don't know. It's like some fucking gang. I don't remember. I think I'm low-key hearing a point in my head where it's like, hey, low-key has a conglomeration of like almost all of their legions to an extent, because they just like, basically activates the card of I'm a rapist. Who wants to also be a rapist? And then all the rapists just join Angron's team. Just like all merging into the Rapist Legion or something. Yeah. Anyway. Now, as you can vibe with stuff like before when we talked about the Emperor, we get to him how he's actually a tragic figure of cursed altruism, because he often has many patterns that are often very abusive, very fucked up. Which another example we'll get with our Thunder Warriors, which are basically like a bunch of rapist legionnaires of his army, which he slaughters because they're basically considered retards to him. Like such degeneracy, it's kind of expected, because they're like supposed to be like basically toddlers in intelligence with epic space marine bodies, which is supposed to be low-key like at least Adeptus Custodes skills, if not Primarch quality. And he's God Emperor is supposed to be so epic, when he realized they're like degenerate rapist retards, he slaughtered them all with his new legion, the Adeptus Custodes. It's supposed to be the one achievement the Adeptus Custodes ever does to me, which is kill the Thunder Warriors with the Emperor so easily. It's like just a fucking off-screen meme. We all just acknowledge he did it, and it was easy. It was so easy, because the Adeptus Custodes and God Emperor were just that much better. They were just so epic. They basically just one-shot them all day and leave in like an hour. We don't even acknowledge how the fight went. It's just supposed to be that easy. Because they're supposed to be like retards that are barely good with their bodies. They're like supposed to like, if I remember right, it's like so sad. The War Clans only have one good, which is just like the fucking, this move. That's all they had. Otherwise they fought like fucking cartoons apparently then, which I'm just saying here like, when I've seen a war video describing their fighting style, which might have been a Reddit meme, so I don't want to take their fighting. Their fighting style was basically just like cartoon vibes, but with apes. They were like ape cartoons. Like basically imagine Donkey Kong, but he wielded an axe. As it was like an axe. It was a Donkey Kong with an axe fighting style. Alright. I'm glad we're there. Anyway. So, and with that, I end up coming to the final point of this video, where I just want to reflect on how in a few ways I relate to the God Emperor. Now first of all, it comes to the vibe of cursed altruism to an extent, where, I don't know, it's just like annoying to admit I've been involved in politics on the streets, and it's just like one of the cursed altruisms is just like doing stuff that goes beyond freaking just typical politics, which is typically fighting people over things that are so sad and annoying. I look at them as Thunder Warriors, because I've debated people on rape, and I've basically had to fight rapists, because I think rape should be legal. And it's cursed altruism alone because, well, some dumb people, even women, are so warped by it. Basically, the second cursed altruism thing is more of a cursed tactician who admits some people are just so addicted to their abuse situations, they get dropped like dumb rocks, who are just addicted to self-abuse from their surroundings and their people who are just abusive. So where we touch on the thing that invents cursed altruism to me the most lately, with me and Danville at least, based on past interactions that probably happened at least months ago, and have kind of escalated recently in my head to where I'm thinking about them really hard. It vibes with chemistry, really, and how scared of chemistry Danville is, and how much I don't care. To where I feel like God Emperor to an extent because I fear chemistry so little. This McDonald's shelf, as the chemists would call it, because it's like enough shit to be a real shelf of chemistry to some people. It's so scary that, like, on a chemistry level to these retards, I am like epic. I'm like epic on a chemical level to them because I just resist shit without even getting a ball rash or like some of my skin to burst. But we do have a minor thing that happened, I think, because I don't remember eating anything like this. We have the color blue showing up on my finger. Do you see that? I hope you do because I see it now. There's like, see, there's blue spots. Are there any other ones? We got some there. Have anything on this hand? Let's check under the gloves. Under this glove. We got some spots there, which like we got some purple and blue, which, if I had to guess, is a scary thing that makes sense to me. On one thing, I've had nail polish balls around, but I'm bored to admit I didn't notice these blue spots on my finger until just now. Now, what that means is scary to a person that is terrified of ink, unless you do things like get tattoos, and you probably think they're dumb. Because that is ink that has been spreading from my nail polish, probably mixing with some of this shit to spread out, because it doesn't always do that. Normally, my fingers are stagnant enough to where those specks don't show up there unless something paints them. They have poked up naturally from standing here for a while, talking to you guys, and wearing nail polish on my hands, probably just based on the pattern of I have blue and purple nail polish on. As in, there's like a blue layer underneath my purple because I just painted over the blue with purple. And so these chemists in this town are so traumatized by something like the idea of wearing two nail polishes that I'm like an apocalyptic retard of sadness to them. Because I'm basically standing here being epic and normal to myself, while some of them are just like basically praying God is real and they don't die in the corner from a man wearing two different nail polishes on his fingernails. We're standing by a bunch of flowers that are kind of hot because we're like by the grill or something out on the other side of a wall. Or at least the other side of the kitchen. Which events, it's basically like a small time oven with enough chemistry from the food chemicals, these flowers, the dirt, the soap they sometimes pour out here to clean a bit, the weird color leaves, the pine, or whatever that is. I think it's pine. It's some kind of pine tree. I know, at least similar to pine. To where they will, and like those roses over there, where they autistically cry about how fragile I am. Where it's like a real political issue, where we sometimes had violence about it. Which is annoying to me, because I feel like a cursed altruist of freedom on this one. This is where something where I relate to myself is something like a Primarch Luffy of like epic quality that doesn't make sense to himself. Because it's just like living with freedom in his head all his life, right? And like a normal level, and just doing stuff like going on a very long walk from my house on the east side of town to the public library to use their Wi-Fi and use a computer, which takes like an hour. Turns out an hour's walk traumatizes people based on how many cars you pass by, how many individual blades of grass you walk on, because apparently each individual grass counts as something like a different element, apparently, to people that are these chemists in this town. Which I'm surprised by, because they all look the same, except there's like two different strains of grass, which is neat. So I suppose they count as different elements based on different strains of grass, actually, rather than different strands. Because basically each of these are a different element to them. Each individual plant, the wall, the ink, the mortar, the metal, where there are so many elements present in one spot, they feel like this is like a death plague spot of chemistry. And I've just stood here, at best, just getting ink to show up on my hands once in a while. We got some new spots on my palm, I think. And nothing else is happening besides, honestly, some minor tingles and stuff. Which I won't lie, the pain is so minor I barely care. It is just processing stuff and moving on. Admittedly though, there is times where it's like a 3 out of 10. And I get it to an extent when people are scared of these things when nothing is happening. And we all admit to ourselves it might be chemistry happening in your body. Now, if you remember, I vibe with the build of the British nobleman of chemistry or alchemy, whichever you want to call it. Now, it's basically that our bodies automatically should be doing chemistry to me based on body heat, our blood vessels being warm with warm blood, heart pumping, and the pain needles that are our nerves. With our nerves, we shock ourselves to generate heat as well in almost every part of our body that can feel pain. So it could be stuff like that to where your body's doing a chemical reaction. Now what is it? I'm not gonna know half the time because I don't feel like overanalyzing where like I fucking get a weird nerve pain in like my knee or something. Could I do math to figure out what it is? Probably. But I'm not gonna lie, when I vibe with as a man in evolution, I decided to vibe with like what's on my mind instead of being a weird autist. I was just like doing a gambling combination with my body all day. Instead of imagining I'm based, I'm processing things. The biggest things I recognize with that is a protein. Now, with enough shit that happens with generating a protein and using it throughout your body, it basically events the fact you're supposed to shake yourself up a lot, create the chemical reaction to even create the protein, and then some weird shit happens with your muscles moving and stuff that you can use the protein to melt it into your muscles. It's supposed to be like really annoying in a chemical reaction when you realize it's happening live in your body. And that's where the cursed altruist of freedom comes in. Because stuff like that makes these chemists cry so hard, they would basically kill themselves and would pray for a doctor to heal them if they felt a weird pain in their toe, and it just like scared them because it kept happening. To where they would want to take pills like beta blockers and pain medicine to stop chemical reactions from happening in their body. It's literally just chemical inhibitors to me. They want to ignore pain to inhibit chemicals being processed through your body, which makes sense to an extent until things like cyst happens, which are buildups of chemicals, which doctors are supposed to figure out how to give you a complicated medicine combo to dissolve things like chemicals building up because you won't let your body automatically do the chemistry, which often results in bullshit, which they call radiation therapy, which is really just honestly letting your body process a bunch of chemicals and being given no pills besides heating the room up. Or surprisingly, you're like in an oven being forced to auto-process a bunch of chemistry in an insulated room and hoping that it doesn't kill you. At least my analysis of what it should be with my own analysis of science and stuff, with my own knowledge of my I don't know, intermediate knowledge of at least game mechanics of chemistry, which basically ends up with it's like two forms of cursed altruism, a freedom versus stability. I am freedom in that I don't care about how something like me walking back and forth on this chemical shelf could be destabilizing society for some reason to people because a weird chemical shows on my hand that could spread to be some poison to some loser like an AIDS kid. Now it's versus cursed stability, who is scared of even a 2-block walk. The problem with this is literally that like chemists in this town are so scared of things like walking by these flowers too hard, with sweating, and even using my voice, because these people are like scared of people even talking too hard, because they imagine that your vocal voice can vibrate things on such epic wavelengths or something that's causing process on a daily basis, chemical processes, which I imagine are so minor I barely fucking care, honestly, because it's like your voice. The only reason I'd care about it for like a vibration even affecting the world if it was at least a shotgun blast of loudness. Otherwise, it's like, I don't think it vibrates enough to cause a chemical reaction, just being dumb. Or maybe it's just like a stadium, people talking. Even then, you could say that's like, I don't know, it could be enough to cause something. At least a minor earthquake. I don't know. We can figure out how to inhibit that probably. We're smart enough to inhibit vibrations probably. We don't have earthquakes every day. But it gets sad and boring to admit that these chemists want you to live such a static, boring life that there has been sad trauma memes in my head where like, now this is like going to sound like a schizo moment from Mr. Jacob Hemlock, but freaking people have volunteered to get rid of their mouths with like weird mouth melting shit that just not, they only breathe through their nose and not talk. Or swear to at least stop talking to where The world might be stagnant around me because all these autistic chemists refuse to acknowledge their voices because they're afraid of chemistry so hard that no one's talking to me. And I'm the only person that talks hard in this town because they're scared of chemistry on a vocal sonic word pattern, which sonic is just like, that's like sonic damage from D&D. They're worried about sonic damage eroding chemicals to where dumb shit can happen. And that's annoying. Because they want you to be so inhibited on freedom, you don't talk too hard. You eat a specific sad food, which is typically just mashed potatoes or oatmeal. Because they don't want you upsetting your chemical balance to even change, like, the acidity of your piss or shit. Because they're worried about the world melting harder from shit and piss than it normally should. And it's just fucking annoying. So you autistically control yourself to make sure no chemical reactions happen in your day-to-day life. Well, I'm the cursed man of freedom who will live his life so hard, at least with normalcy, where I will do things like sweat for an hour and walk at a normal pace, and just nothing happens really to me. I don't see anything change, like a sign change in color or anything. The best that happens is, again, that something like this showed up on my finger, but I'm not going to track everyone around me to know for sure. It's annoying to admit that the world seems so normal still, they seem dumb. And it's just a point we stand on where it's like they curse the world with cursed ability to where you're supposed to live like Bubble Boy in a bubble of your house with even not doing stuff like playing the Xbox too much. That could generate too much salt from playing your Xbox One S for too long, which could upset the world on a chemical level with how much salt your machines can use, to where even on a stay-at-home entertainment level, you barely get a book because they're worried about you burning ink with your fingertips while you fucking hold a book with your body heat. Well, I'm a cursed man of freedom, as I said, who will walk too hard, live too hard, smoke too hard, do everything too hard, but on a civilian basis, to where I'm like a chain smoker, glutton of decent shape, who does things like this, standing by flowers, the kitchen on either side of a wall, red dye, metal pipes, probably some electrical wires, a bunch of electrical wires in that pipe, just a bunch of bullshit flowers, a weird leaf tree, where basically I am cursed freedom with that. I could be causing chemical reactions around me at least, and with my own body, with how sometimes I've been feeling bits of subtle pain, right now just in my shoulder, I haven't been doing any exercise really. Our society would be annoyed. But the fact that, I don't know, a bunch of chemistry could have happened from me standing here too hard. Which I don't know what to do but say that I haven't noticed anything. So I don't think it's real, besides I'm feeling pain for myself. Which could be just be processing things to do stuff based on injuries I have, like realigning my muscle strands after I get like a muscle cramp that ruins my muscle strand pattern with my muscles. It could be just processing food, because as I mentioned before in another video, I've learned from a guy that he thinks that food hangs on your muscle strands. You have to do exercise to process them, which scares people, because if exercise processes chemicals in your body, that means you're processing a bunch of food that's been like stagnant on your muscle strands for who knows how long to a fat person. To where they like, it's fucking like most annoying with a fat person who could have a bunch of mold on their muscles and fat, to where they're like legitimately like a chemistry problem of sadness, which they should still try to become skinny. Because it's not like we've heard that when an obese person on World's Biggest Loser lost weight, that like a bomb happened or someone melted. Nothing went wrong in the World's Biggest Loser that I know of. Which, if you guys remember, is a TV show about fat people losing weight so hard with such epic workouts. They regularly, if the show is not fibbing, not fucking lying, lose like hundreds of pounds in like a few months every season that show was on. I'm not sure if it's still on, but that show invents the vibe. If that was going to happen, the fat people filled with mold that were hundreds of pounds, like at least 300 pounds every time in that show, would have been causing such epic chemistry that the world of stagnancy just looks annoying, because those fat people didn't cause absurd chemical reactions with the molded food that's left on their muscle strands while they were working out, losing hundreds of pounds in a few months in the World's Biggest Loser. Which stuff like that or we can vibe with that. That was loud as fuck, but my ears didn't bleed. So again, the world of stagnancy is dumb and weak to me. And that's where we're going to end it there. I don't really feel like I have anything more to say for now, especially because it's about to hit the 50-minute mark. And my phone's on 19%, guys. If we feel like continuing this, I'll feel like it, but we established my basic patterns with like how I feel towards me in this town with love and hate. So event's a basic pattern where bullshit's happening, where I at least feel as tragic as the God Emperor in some ways. More as like a bored dystopian adventurer who is in a static chemistry world because they want to avoid causing even too many vibrations from like that car roaring by that I think people will die. And there's been political violence and stuff over it to me in my memories. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this review of Warhammer and my vibes with how I relate to the God Emperor to an extent. I'm not going to pretend I've been as epic as him, but events a vibe that I just feel like I relate to cursed altruism and just the way I live freely compared to this town's vibe of being cursed stability. Peace and love, YouTube, Twitch,